Hello, this is Pixel Freak, and this is part 79 of the Final Fantasy Dimensions walkthrough. So this is it, the final dungeon. We are going to approach Castle, I think it's Avalon, or... What we gotta do is find it. Come on, find it. Find the name so we can confirm it. Castle Avalon, I was right. So, you gotta fly over there. It had a barrier on it until you picked up all the orbs, the 8 orbs that were in the last few pieces. Once you do that, it breaks the barrier on Castle Avalon, and then you can sink into there. And basically, this is a number of dungeons, and they just kind of go down as you progress. You go from one dungeon to the next. But the first one is the castle, and you warp from there into the rest of the dungeons. So we are on our way there. Alright, get to the front door and we'll get a little scene here. Get a little bit of text, a little bit of story. So in exploring the castle, there are a few treasure chests here. There's actually, throughout the whole of the last dungeon, I guess I almost shouldn't call this the last dungeon because there are multiple pieces to this. It's this one, and then you go into the next piece, and then you get into a piece that's like split into 4, and it gets really deep. And there's plenty of times when you can actually warp back out if you'd like to. I'm just gonna go straight through it. You're gonna see me go through and just beat the boss here, but there's treasure chests in almost every facet of this as we go through. Here we go. Here's the first one, Asura's Rod. And I'm not in any hurry, at least, to equip all this gear, just because my guys are already over leveled, and I do go through and refresh my equipment periodically. You may or may not see me do it. You know, it's up to you. If you pick up this gear and you feel like, hey, I really need to equip myself, go ahead, do it, whatever. I don't, just because I find that in games, especially games like Diablo, but games that are loot heavy, Final Fantasy, a little bit. But you end up spending so much time equipping your guys that, and a lot of times the equipment is just an incremental change. I just don't hit the menu that much because I feel like it's a waste of time. And I know I've said this before in another part. If you've been watching the entire walkthrough, I've made this point before. I like to just stop once, after a couple different dungeons, or maybe after one dungeon, I'll do a full dungeon and go through and meticulously equip all my gear based on what I feel would be the right gear to have. A lot of times I don't like the optimizations that they give. Sometimes they do. Actually, this game's been pretty decent with that. You have to watch out with your white mages and black mages because the optimization tends to favor weapons with high damage as opposed to high stats. And with white mages they need mind, and black mages they need intelligence. But anyway, so I don't equip gear very often, but when I do, I kind of do a complete overhaul. So the only part in this section of the dungeon that's even remotely worth talking about is there's an ice skating piece. It's kind of a puzzle almost. And I go through it, I don't believe completely optimally. There's a spot, and I think I'll talk more to it once we get to it. There's a spot where you have a choice between falling off a cliff or not, and it might be possible to do it without ever falling down, but I do fall down. These pieces here where you have to pull this trigger and get in these fights are not avoidable. You have to get into them. Luckily, they're just regular fights, so it's not a big deal at all. just clean them up and move on. There's actually 2 pulleys. There's this pulley here, and then you'll have to go do another pulley on another section of the castle in order to unlock the door. And similarly, you will end up in a fight there as well. And as the puzzle looks, you can tell one pulley activates the box and one pulley activates the door. So pull them both. Only one of them had a fight, but they're both there. It's kind of like having one of those monsters in a box, but kind of not as well. Those swords just look like those need to be touched. Apparently not. I think it's been a little while since I did a lot of commentary. I'm actually kind of sitting through this one, I guess, putting extra commentary in them. In the last few pieces, I've been doing just minimal commentary on the videos. I know when I first started doing this walkthrough, a lot of people were just clamoring for do more commentary. You know, moving forward, doing other walkthroughs, I don't think I'm going to do that again. It's just a bad idea. The Final Fantasy III walkthrough I did 0 commentary. This one, I tried to do as much as possible, and there's actually quite a few pieces here where I talk through the entire thing, and I even get off topic just because there's not enough to talk about while you're watching this game. This piece that I'm doing right now, I've already talked about this, and we already know I'm going to open that up, and then I'm going to end up getting a fight with these guys over here because I'm going to steal a treasure chest. Right there, and they get real protective, and then they're like, hey, you shouldn't have been pulling that wire. And we fight them. Anyways, I will be doing Final Fantasy IV in the very near future, and I know that game's been out for a little while now. There's other games I have planned to do walkthroughs for as well. I really enjoy doing these walkthrough videos, but I think that I don't want to talk through the whole thing. If you ever watch the Battle Heart walkthrough, that's honestly my favorite way to do it. Battle Heart, I did the entire game in one video. It's like 2.5 hours long. That doesn't make sense from the perspective of views for the channel, but for the popularity of the video, that video did really well, possibly because it's all the whole walkthrough in one piece, and then I just chime in and talk a little bit about each piece. So Vada comes up here and he talks to you a little bit. Nothing really happens from it. You don't fight him or anything. I don't think you do. If you do, I'm going to be very surprised because I just reviewed this whole thing and I don't remember fighting him. There is a boss at the end of this video. It's Cocytus. You have to fight all the generals. Now that you've fought all the normal elemental guys, you have to fight the super generals. And it's Cocytus, and I think one of them's name is Genna, and then there's the other guy. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. But the evil one. All the evil guys. The guys that are really difficult, that were been kicking your ass up to this point, they are all going up against you. Alright, so the part here with the ice skating is coming up pretty quick. Save it here, and then you'll actually end up walking down a couple levels, or maybe it's up. But you end up, oh, it must be up. You're going up because you fall down. So you got to go up to the ice chambers. And I do manage my way through it, and it's relatively optimal. It's not perfect. I even cut a bunch of it out because when I ended up doing it, I ended up doing it really messed up, and then I went back through it, and it worked a lot better the second time. But anyways, yeah, going through, so Final Fantasy IV, I know I started the first part, and there was a lot of people for a long time, when are you going to do that? And the problem is that this game, Final Fantasy Dimensions, just is a super long game. They wanted to make sure that you definitely got 40 hours in this game, and for the first playthrough for pretty much anybody, it's going to be a 40-hour game. And my playthrough is actually more like 50 hours, 60 hours. So lots and lots of gameplay. This is a long walkthrough that I've done here. Final Fantasy IV shouldn't take me more than about 30 hours. So it's going to be significantly shorter, which is really nice. Really looking forward to that. But that's why it took so long, is I'm kind of I do what I say I'm going to do. You know, that's the kind of guy I am. And here we go. This is the part that I was talking about. This is where it really begins. So you come down here, slide down that first one, go over, and then you go up. That'll get you the first treasure box. And I'm not sure if there's a way to get back. There's another treasure box in the center at the bottom, and I think it's... Yeah, I think you have to fall down here, but I'm not sure. If somebody's got another way to do it, where you can get the whole thing, that treasure box right there, get that one and get out of here without ever falling, leave it in the comments. Maybe I'll add an annotation up here so the people can do it a little more optimally. But I fall. And then I end up walking back up and doing that same piece again, and then I get that treasure box and get out of there. But back to what I was talking about. Final Fantasy IV, I'm going to do commentary kind of like I've done in the last few videos of this game. I'm not going to talk through the whole thing because it really doesn't make sense for me to talk through the entire walkthrough. Maybe there might be some pieces where, kind of like this one, I talk through much more of it than normal. But I think the overall schema that I'll be using for that walkthrough will be to talk a little bit about what the video is going to be about at the beginning, and then maybe talk a little bit more if there's poignant pieces that need to be made here and there. I'll go back and do that. Alright, so you got to go back and go through the second one. There you go, down. I think it's right, down. Oh, of course I go back down a little bit. That was most definitely a mistake. So going through this, I actually had my controls set up a little bit differently, and you're seeing a lot of controller mistakes because I wasn't used to controlling it the way I was doing it. And then you're supposed to go down and then right? No. What? I think it's down and then I think it's right. I'm supposed to go and then up and then right and then down. Yeah, there we go. So it's still a little bit messed up looking how you get through this piece. You might have to fall down once. That's the best I could do at the moment. But if anybody's got a better path, let me know. You could tell I doubled back. I did a double take a few times, I guess, on a few of those parts. Part of it was controller issues, and part of it was just me not being able to figure it out perfectly. Alright, just gonna hang out here for a second. Making my plan, checking my notes. So coming up here pretty quick is the fight against I think her name is Cocytus. This is a rough battle, and I don't remember if there's any status ailments that she attacks you with. But what's important to know is that you should probably approach this fight with a full-on defensive strategy. You need to be doing buffs in this fight. Unless you're, mid-70s plus, it probably isn't a good idea to just rush in and start doing cures on your whole team and then attacking. So here she is. We're gonna fight her. Cocytus. I think that's what it is. Cocytus. I think I'm pronouncing that right. This game has more messed up stuff than any other Final Fantasy that I have run into, where I had a hard time pronouncing some of the words. Anyways, for this one, just put up Protect and Shell right away on all your guys. If you have a Paladin, man, that's really easy. That Mighty Guard, you're going to see me do that over and over. I usually hit Mighty Guard up on everybody. My White Mage here in the center. So hopefully see, Mighty Guard's always my first move. Not always, but it should be my first move with my Paladin. And then haste the Paladin to make sure that you get that up. But then also haste, I did that perfectly. And you'll see me do it a little bit differently in other fights, but if you have a similar setup to me where you have a White Mage with double cast and a Paladin, every fight should start just like this one did. Haste the Paladin, haste the mage that's got double cast, and use Mighty Guard. That'll get Shell and Protect up right away. Boom, just like that. And now you have haste on the Paladin helps get the Mighty Guard up right away, because Mighty Guard actually takes a while to fight or to actually activate. Then you want to haste the double casting White Mage, because that White Mage is casting haste on everybody. Now if you have, there's a Hastega fusion ability. If you have that, obviously use that. I don't have that, so you're going to see me through the rest of the game casting haste like crazy on my double casting White Mage. And then my Seer ends up acting as the healer until my double casting White Mage finishes hasting. At that point, the double casting White Mage should change to only heals, and the Seer then goes all in casting Holy. So there we go. We got to confuse on the Paladin. So obviously this enemy hits with confuse. It's not too bad. It's not like the last. I think this is the last boss that we fought. There was an attack they did that did confuse on everybody. If you're still using the same equipment from that guy, you shouldn't have to worry about this one too much, because you should have your anti-confuse gear up. Yeah, for me, I think this is a pretty good team where I have the Magus at the bottom, and the Magus chain casts Flare, which hits about 7k, 8k at the same every time. The Seer will cast Holy later in the battle, which does somewhere between 4 and 6k on most enemies, I think. The White Mage does dual casting of Curaja or Curaga, or a mixture of the two. Just depends. And then the two guys at the top usually will cast, I got a Dark Knight up there and a Paladin. The Paladin uses the Ivory attack, which is just like a holy attack. And then there's also an Ebony Slash or something like that the Dark Knight has. And that's what I use for him. It's similar, but it's a dark attack. And I think it's kind of a mix between physical and magical, but I'm not sure. Ebony Slash, there it is. So I can't remember off the top of my head which element Cocytus is. I might be able to tell by watching what her attacks are. And the boss of the game is actually kind of interesting, and will kind of give you a little bit of foreshadowing here, or at least a little bit of a hint on what's going to happen up there. He does changes. He shifts between holy and dark elements and normal. So it's an interesting fight, especially with the Paladin and the Dark Knight. It is an interesting fight. So you can see here, Holy, 4k. That's pretty typical. 4k is about typical. So Cocytus, not too difficult if you buff yourself up pretty well. And again, if you're in the mid 60s to lower 70s, it should be a pretty easy fight. If you're in the lower 60s, you're probably going to need to grind a little bit before you can even beat the game. But you can probably do this piece. It'll just be a tougher fight. So alright, she's dead, and that's going to get pretty close to the end of this piece. We're going to go ahead and jump into the next piece, where we're going after, I think Shango is the next boss. Going deeper into the dungeon.